time. We'll begin with considering approval of the Plan Commission meeting minutes of October 9th, 2017.
Move approval.
Second.
There's a motion by Truel, second by Hannah. Any comments or amendments? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Council Representative report from Alderperson Truel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Two items that Council took up after our last Plan Commission meeting. Council did approve the CSM for 500 Dunkirk, which was the combining of a couple of residential lots to allow for a detached garage. And then we did approve the conditional use for the Pick and Save fuel station. I believe those are the items that went to
Great.
Council.
Thank you. And status of current developments from Planning Director Shield.
The report is in the packet. I think it's noteworthy to talk about the number of single-family homes that have been started this year. Through October, we've started 25 single-family home starts, as opposed to last year, the total year was 16. And we've actually got several that are coming in yet this year with plans to have their basements in the ground before frost. So hopefully we'll be in that 30 range or so by the end of the year.
That's great. Any comments or questions? We did have the grand opening for Aldi's on Thursday, a groundbreaking out at Kettle West on Tuesday. So things are moving forward. Sure.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a question, Rodney, with regard to the, right just north of town, where they're tearing out a bunch of trees.
The Granary property.
Yeah, what's going on there?
Yeah, that property is not in the city limits, so the property in question is just north of the Stoughton lumber location. Is not in the city. It's in our ETJ, and we anticipate when the developer plans to move forward, he'll have to come through us and work with us. I'd anticipate any development plan would anticipate sewer and water extension. I think the developer is initially just wanting to take a look at the property and sit down and start to figure out a concept that they can start to consider with the city.
So there's no plans yet on what it's going to be or
No.
what they're looking at?
I mean, our comprehensive plan talks about what we envision as at least generalized land use for that area. There has been no concepts or things that I've seen related to that.
Thank you.
Lots of rumors out there in the community, but nothing that's come forward as a real plan. All right, thank you. First, we have a request by Todd Nelson for approval of a planned development, general development plan, a GDP to construct two 4-unit residential multiplex units at 314 West Main Street. And we'll start with an overview with Rodney.
Yeah, in your packet, and I know the commission met on this last month, at least in concept, and it's before you tonight as part of a public hearing. There's really essentially 4 exceptions that are being asked for as part of this, and they're related to the building unit separation, or the building separation, the distance between the buildings. Code would require under general zoning to have a 40-foot separation. They're also looking for a reduced setback from the front property line and from the Prairie Street side as well. That, and then there is a question about whether there will be a driveway location along this side. As you see, there's an easement that's afforded to the property to the rear here. It's a little unclear as to whether this driveway is proposed to be here. If so, the minimum access aisle width for a driveway would be 18 feet. If it's just going to be a driveway disconnected from this, then that wouldn't have to be 18 feet. So that's something we'll have a discussion with the developer who's here to present on it as well when his time comes.
Okay, thank you. So, excuse me? Well, let me open the public hearing. Or do you want to do that first?
They can give an
Okay,
overview.
why don't you go ahead and give us an overview first, and then we'll see if folks have questions. Welcome. And you are?
Oh, sorry. Allie Burke.
Okay.
I live in the house, like, right behind that.
Right, that's why I thought maybe we'd go into that public hearing first, and
Oh,
then you can speak.
Yeah, if you can, yeah.
Yep, Ally, why don't you let me open a public hearing, and then we'll go ahead. Is there the developer? Todd, is your developer here? Did you want to say anything about the development before the public hearing?
Good evening. The easement to the east is, we've never mentioned using that easement to have access to the property. It's an easement that that the property owner has, that's directly behind. I met with him back early in the process. We can live with the easement. We don't have any issues, and we're not planning on taking access to that easement. So that's just that's basically the way we look at it. Is they have a recorded easement, and it's their business.
Okay.
Any questions?
I'm sure there will be as we go along, but
All right,
thanks,
great.
Todd. So I'm going to go ahead and close the meeting and open a public hearing. And now I know that Ellie has some questions for us.
Yeah. So they still didn't move the smoking place where they would be, the picnic table there that they'd be allowed to smoke.
Mm-hmm.
I have a concern about that because I have history of family members who have cancer, who've had cancer, and I, am more likely to have cancer because of that. So I would appreciate it if we possibly move that to a different location that's like not against the back there.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and I know we had talked about that previously, and if you want to go ahead, I'll have Mr. Nelson speak to some of your questions if you'd like.
Yeah, and then the dumpster was the other thing,
Right.
which they moved. I mean, it's still going to be next to it's still going to be near my garage area, so I'll still probably smell a lot of that stuff. So I guess if they can move it further, over,
Mm-hmm.
that would be great.
Okay. Now, Todd, were you aware of some of the requests from the last Plan Commission? I think Michael probably followed up with you with some of the discussion commissioners had. Okay. And what are your comments about the moving the smoking area away from the residential area?
So I apologize. I didn't quite understand the first concern.
Sure. Ally, if you want to.
So the picnic area is a place for them to smoke, and because, I have a history of cancer in my family, so that would kind of be an issue with it being right there, because all that smoke goes around to my house, and where I have a garage there, and I like to use it a lot as a workshop, so having that smoke there, it decreases the value of the house, having all that stuff there.
Okay.
So,
Did you have other concerns, Ally?
well, I was also wondering where they're gonna have lights, because, it's really dark around where that whole corner is.
Mm-hmm.
And having a parking lot behind there in between a fenced area, it just seems like a great place for people to do drug deals and stuff like that. So
Lighting is
I'm
required.
wondering where their lights are going to be,
Mhm.
and also the exterior.
Okay.
I don't believe they changed any of that to make it look nicer.
Right, and Planning Director Shield just reminded me, this is looking at the site plan, or at the rezoning,
Oh, okay.
and not the site plan review at this time.
Okay.
But all of your comments are being heard by the commissioners and will come into effect as they do the site plan.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So that's why it's really important to hear from you.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks, Ellie.
So yeah. When do they have the site plan review?
Maybe just procedurally, I'll just highlight, we're in the process of considering this site to be rezoned to allow for 2 4-unit dwelling units with the distance separation exceptions that I talked about. If that gets approved through this body as well as the city council, then the developer would submit a detailed site plan, maybe refining what he has here, taking into consideration the comments that have been heard as well as from commissioners, to make sure that their site plan would comply with city ordinances. And that's not a public hearing. This is a public hearing environment for you to offer your comments. So I think it is prudent to have those mentioned, but yet the commissioners really will be focusing on the overall zoning of the site at this point.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Did you have any other concerns you wanted to let us know about?
Not.
Not right now.
Really,
We'll-
other than like the fence that's gonna be there. That-
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. All right, well, if you
Yeah.
think of some, just let us know, or you can always contact us.
Okay. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak about rezoning of the property? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public, oh, that was a very quiet closing. I'll close the public hearing and reopen for the regular course of business. So regarding the rezoning of this parcel, questions and comments from our commissioners?
Maybe I can restate the issues. The issue is to try to, that's being considered is to rezone the property to GDP, which is a general development plan, which allows for some opportunities for exceptions, if you will, related to what the standard MR24 or multifamily residential zoning strictly would enforce. So this would allow, as being requested, and they're highlighted in the draft ordinance in your packet, but maybe I can just walk through them. Normally, an MR24 zoning would require to have a 25-foot setback from the property line along Main Street and likewise along Prairie Street. You can see in the paperwork that they're requesting to reduce the front setback to 20 feet on Prairie Street and 20 foot 3 3/8 from West Main Street. The second consideration is the distance between the two buildings. Normally, there would be a requirement to have a 40-foot separation between the two buildings. The request is to have that be allowed to be down to 25 feet. And then the last one may not be germane, but the site plan would have to consider what we may have misunderstood this driveway location. If this driveway location continues but is not connected to this area, it would not be considered an access drive, and therefore the fourth bullet that's in the draft would not be pertinent. There's existing pavement that may or may not show up on the final site plan to allow that easement to be used as a driveway. We'll look forward to that as part of the final site plan, but right now, if this isn't going to be connected by pavement, the fourth bullet point of the draft ordinance is not necessary.
Pertinent, okay. Thank you, Rodney. Commissioner thoughts and questions? Commissioner Engelberger?
Thank you, Your Honor. So the easement is on this property, right?
Correct.
But it's accessing the neighbor's. It's there because it's an access for the neighbor to get back to the back of his property, is that it?
That's my reading of the
Okay.
easement language.
And it's not going to be connected in
It has to come
for
across.
this property?
It has to come across.
Well, if it's not connected to this part of the pavement of this area here, it wouldn't be considered access.
So
If this
is
is
it
just a
or isn't
long
it
driveway
gonna
to
be
there and it's not connected, then the exception to have that less than 18 feet wouldn't have to be in place.
Okay, but I mean, are they planning not to connect that then, or what? Or don't we know that yet?
Todd, can you help us with that answer? I think I heard you say earlier you're not planning to connect that drive to your development?
We are not connecting to that easement.
Okay.
Okay, so your only access will be from Prairie Street?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I guess another question I would have would be, with this approval, this is just a zoning. We're not approving the look of the building or those types of matters?
You're not. You're approving the allowance of 2 4-unit buildings. You would be approving the exceptions that we've just discussed. And then based on the framework of those, all the other code compliance would need to be met as part of that approval.
Okay, so what's the distance between the buildings in this
20
layout?
I think it's 25 as shown.
And could it be more or no? Could
Well,
they move it apart farther? Or will it
Well,
get too close to that easement?
That's what they're proposing at this point.
But I mean, my question is, can the building on the east side be moved to the east a little bit or not?
Probably not another 15 feet and still allow some driveway access to the back. just my
Okay. I mean,
reflection on
could
the
it be
distances
moved
here.
over 8 feet or 10 feet, possibly?
You can ask the developer. If
I guess my question would be, Rodney, within our rules, would it, if you did move it over, let's say 10 feet, would it be still enough on that side to comply with our ordinances?
I
as far
believe
as-
you have to have 20 feet on that side.
Okay, and what do we have now?
I think it's shown as
22.
23 something.
Okay.
22 feet, 6 inches.
22
So
foot 6.
you could move it over 2 foot 6 inches then, basically, right now. And still stay in the side yard
So it looks that way.
distance. Okay,
Looks that way.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, we can move the building to the east over a few more feet. It was just a little bit of a balancing act, because they do, the neighbors directly to the north, they do use that easement to drive their vehicle in and out. So it's a little bit of a balancing act, how close is too close and such.
So that easement, just a question, is that, which property is that easement leading to then?
Benefits the property directly to the north of the easement.
So it's the one behind the house that's on Prairie Street?
Yes.
It's a Prairie Street address.
Washington Street.
I'm sorry. Thank you. It's a Washington Street address.
Okay,
Yep.
yep.
Commissioner Hanna.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, Todd, I see that you did, from the first rendition, which is what we see on the landscape plan here, you basically moved 5 feet west and 5 feet south, just to kind of balance off that corner and give you more space. I understand why you wouldn't want to move closer to the east. That's kind of an awkward entrance with, it's not the prettiest asphalt drive over there, and to have your sidewalk abutting up to it and, leaving yourself 2 feet of grass in between that and concrete doesn't really make sense. I think the 25-foot width on this lot for the size of the buildings seems to be suitable. I don't have a problem with that, and I don't really have a problem with the encroachment onto to Prairie Street. Actually, part of our discussion last meeting was to, for going this direction in the general development plan, so that you could bring it closer to Main Street for the Main Street experience, so it doesn't feel so set back. It's more in balance with other like residential properties on that street. So I don't know, it actually looks like because you gain that space, you're able to turn the parking north and south. I don't know if you want to speak to that, the part of the rearranged parking layout. And I know we're not really necessarily talking exactly specifics, and you'll come back with a specific plan, but.
Right. Okay, so, yeah, so the history, I mean, it was back a few months ago when I was just going for a zoning change to MR24. This was, at that meeting, it was passed. And then I guess with the conditional use, with having 2 buildings, that's when the little hiccup was discovered between the distance between the 2 buildings. From that meeting, we heard feedback about perhaps having the buildings a bit closer to Main Street, which would have been preferred by us. I went out and measured the property, the bank across the street, and then the adjacent properties, and the average setback from the inside of the sidewalk was just a little over 15 feet. So, okay, so I'm going to jump around a little bit now. Then, going to the parking, we originally had kind of the tandem style parking, but we ran into some handicap issues. So then we went to the north-south, and so that kind of moving the buildings towards Main Street helped us there. The dumpster location was relocated to the east only for what I heard from another neighbor, that they didn't like it on the west. So honestly, we'd prefer to have it on the west, but we're just taking that feedback and moving it there. The gathering area is just planning on a large picnic table. I mean, we just kind of we put it there by default because that seemed to be the largest green space, but again, if the neighborhood feels like it should be to the west, it's fine with us.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
The only other thing I want to make, she addressed about the lighting, an updated photometric plan was emailed to Michael Stacy last week, and it appears, if I remember correctly, that we won't need any post lights, that the lighting will just be off the sides of the garage doors.
Great.
Okay, thanks, Todd. Further comments or questions? Commissioner Commissioner Bartlett, I'm sorry.
Other Matt.
Other Matt.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with the setbacks, I guess. They do seem consistent with the other buildings along there. Does move it a little bit further away from that back property and some of her concerns possibly. And I guess one question I had, Rodney, was item 13 in your letter mentioned possibly two-way traffic or one-way traffic. Was that if they used the easement and went all the way around?
Yeah,
Is that-
we had tried to clarify, knowing that that easement area was there, we didn't know if that was gonna use, it would create a problem if it was two-way traffic, if that was connected, so.
Thanks.
That was a concern, thank you.
Commissioner
Yeah,
Hannah.
I'll make a move for approval.
Second?
Motion by Hannah, second by Bartlett. Commissioner Barman.
Just a clarification, as relates to what we're approving here in terms of that front setback of 20 feet, 3 inches and 3/8. If, as we go through the site plan portion, the issue comes up again, as was brought up at the last commission meeting, about the desire to have the front faces of those buildings have more of a connection to Main Street and the sidewalk, whether that be in having some sort of patio or porches. If that 20 feet, 3 3/8 inches is hard and fast, if we decide that we want to bring porches or anything else into that space, if we can have essentially have the power later to reduce that even further as part of the site plan discussion.
You would not.
We would not.
That is, I mean, if you're talking structure, if you're talking a patio or a poured concrete space, that's different than a structure. But your structure could not be closer than.
Like a balcony.
Yes, you have, I believe it's a 2.5-foot overhang for like an eave that could encroach into a setback area. But the building footprint couldn't be closer than 20 foot 3/8 inches. If you so work that out in the future, it'd have to come back through this process again.
Okay. Because I, as myself, I'd be comfortable stating that the setback, as far as this particular change in zoning, be that it could be 15 or 16 feet, because that's what the other buildings along Main, whether or not we have to move the buildings all the way up there, if the buildings end up having a better relationship with Main Street because of that opportunity, then to me, that's something I would be in favor of.
You could make an amendment,
Yeah.
propose an amendment to this.
Okay, Commissioner Hannah, and then True, and I forgot my.
Sure. Yeah, on that topic, you bring up a good point, Todd, and thank you for that. The other Todd, Mr. Nelson, is that, I mean, that was part of our discussion last meeting. Can you want to speak to that, so that, you know, if we do that?
Yep. So I was aware of that preference. And the reason, basically the two reasons why I decided not to go into that route is it was getting tight as far as impervious ratio. That'd just be more concrete, and I can't see the exact numbers, but we're barely in an acceptable range. The other item was, the front porches is typically where they're going to put. I mean, there are no decks here. Even then, they couldn't put a Weber grill or a charcoal grill there, and I was just concerned about it getting a little cluttered looking. And I guess I wanted a nice clean profile. I think the building elevation is very sharp. I don't think it needs a front porch. But I mean, we certainly can, but it's going to change some concrete calculations on our end.
Thank you. Commissioner, oh, did you want to finish?
Sure, yeah, if I could just continue. I think maybe even from just an arc, Rodney, if you could go back to elevation, that'd be great. And Rodney, maybe you can speak to this too, but over the first story windows, even just another detail, you know, like a just little portico or
I can do it, I
or
can, okay, I can,
something, yeah.
yeah, I can come up with some type of shed awning to,
Mhm.
yeah, that's not a problem. I
You know,
can-
to
yep.
give it more of an appearance, just like you have over the entrances on the sides.
Yes,
So it's kind of like a faux
Yep.
look. It adds another roof line that brings it down a little bit more on, you know,
we can come up with
human
something.
perspective. And that wouldn't affect,
I believe you have for an eve or is only like 2.5 feet.
Okay.
My recommendation is if there's a desire to anticipate something there, that this
To
get
adjust.
modified to
Sure.
15 feet or something different than the 20-foot 3/8 inches.
Okay, Commissioner Chul.
Thank you, Your Honor. And that's where I was going to go, Todd, because we clearly had this discussion. Unfortunately, you weren't with us at that meeting, but I mean, we all, commissioners, tried to offer suggestions and ideas. I think the concern that we have is that sense of truly feeling like you're looking at the side of the building as you're going along there. And so I certainly would echo the comments of Matt and basically say I think that is something that we'd like to do. Again, some type of awning, something to break this up on the side. And I think that maybe the best way to go is to
So,
adjust the square footage, or, you know, the footage there to allow us to perhaps get to, as Rodney suggested, 15 feet or more.
Yep, as I'm looking at that front elevation, the two center windows, I could make both of those windows, and I'd probably do it to the two single windows on the outside. I can make both of those windows quite a bit taller, and then mimic the shed roof that's on the side with the soffit braces going all the way across. And I think that would kind of give it an impression of a front porch, and with the
Right.
taller windows, might fool some people thinking that it might be a front door, potentially. I think that would look
Yep.
very nice.
Yep.
agree.
Thank you. I have Commissioner Engelberger, who I've neglected. I'm sorry.
Well, I guess, I thought that wasn't what we were deciding here tonight. I thought we were just deciding on the zoning.
You are, and I'm sorry.
Go
I
ahead.
thought,
Yep.
I thought an SIP was coming down the road to address these types of issues.
They are, but if there is a reduction in the setback, you have to address that now. And it's, what I'm hearing is there's discussion about trying to have the building come forward more, and the exception in the proposed ordinance would have to be modified if that was going to be envisioned.
It's going to take a little more space. Commissioner Varman.
Yeah, and I'll just go on the record as saying, for me, it's not just trying to make it look like it might have an entrance and having a faux entrance on the front. For me, especially being this close to the downtown, it's really important for the building to actually have a relationship with that front sidewalk. And I know we're not deciding that tonight, but I just want to plant the seed for you to actually really seriously consider moving the front entrance for those units to Main Street. And I don't think it's an issue of too much concrete, because if you move those entrances around, you have a straight shot off the Main Street sidewalk to those front doors, and you don't have to have these long sidewalks down the side, because you've got essentially a long sidewalk that parallels the sidewalk along Prairie Street, which would not be necessary. So I think there's ways to deal with landscaping and deal with concrete to still hit the 49%, 50% threshold in terms of impervious surface area, and really consider having a relationship with Main Street, which is what historically and traditionally buildings in this area of the community would have a strong. And I know at the last meeting we were talking about, for example, during Sentinel de Mai, when you have the parade coming by, front porch and front door kind of relationship with the sidewalk is a way we connect with community. And so I think it's important from that perspective. And so I think it behooves us to leave room within our change in zoning to allow for that consideration as part of the site plan.
Okay, thank you. As Rodney had mentioned, we might want to entertain an amendment to this resolution, if you so desire. Commissioner Hannah.
If I can amend my own motion.
And your own motion, sure.
A motion for an amendment to reduce the Main Street setback to 15 feet.
16? How about 16?
16?
16. Because I think you measured in, it was a little over 15. And I think the city did a search, and it says the average along that street is 16.
16, officially.
Sorry.
Bottom right.
Is there a second? We don't have a second at this
Bartlett
point.
was the original second.
Sorry.
Is this a friendly amendment then? You're not amending it, you're just making a friendly amendment to your motion,
Yes,
correct?
I agree with that. Yeah.
All right. So we'll change that original motion to include a 16-foot setback on the front. Further comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. This motion carries.
All right.
Thank you. We have a request by Kevin Yeska for approval of a specific implementation plan amendment for Lot 7, Kettle Park West Commercial Center. Rodney?
There's a number of things going on this site plan, and Mr. Yuska, I think, will be most well-versed and able to walk us through those, but I think this graphic will provide us the basis of that discussion.
Hi everyone, Kevin Yeska with JSD. So we are back again for the 4th time, I think. But we are moving forward. Just as an update, we did proof roll the parking lot today for both the Dunkin' Donuts building, lot 7-4, what we're calling the southwest corner there, and then also the parking lot out to the west of 7-2, with asphalt coming very, very shortly. So hopefully we can get approval on this item tonight, but what we are bringing forward is a few changes that have happened to the parking lot addition along with the architecture of 7-2. First being, we are looking to add 43 stalls just west there that Rodney's highlighting for a couple different reasons. First off is just constructability of this project and not piecemealing things. We have asphalt out on site. We're pushing dirt around, putting down the base course. We would like to just pave all in one. Otherwise, as a future user would come on, we would just have to be saw cutting pavement, putting in those islands, putting in the asphalt. And from a constructability and longevity standpoint, you now have cracks, control joints all over the place, and the parking lot just won't hold up that long. Second being is, if you recall, that's where our underground detention system and infiltration basin is. And if we weren't to put this asphalt in now, we would have to probably put a temporary fence over that area to topsoil and seed that. Wouldn't make the most sense, as you're just going to be scraping off that topsoil in the future, putting down your base, and then putting asphalt down. So we'd hate to have a temporary construction fence sitting out there for a few months or possibly even a year or two, depending on how the other lots move forward. And then third reasoning being just to satisfy a lease agreement with a tenant for lot 7-2. Not that they need all the stalls and those additional 43 stalls, but an exhibit was provided in their lease agreement that did show a few of those stalls, and I believe it would be like the first row right there, yes, highlighted in their lease agreement that we need to satisfy as well. So 3 items that all make sense in our opinion, and we like to move forward with that. To satisfy this, we have also moved around the trash enclosure just on the north end. It used to be just to the southwest of that. In that area we had a trash enclosure there, and we've been playing with layouts for 7-1 and just feel like moving this out of that area would help in the future if another tenant were to move forward in 7-1. For that reason, the ramp up on the north end of 7-2 has just flip-flopped. Go down to number 3 and 4. Working with Pancake Cafe, they wanted a certain patio layout to satisfy that tenant, so we mocked that, just changed that a little bit, and then also provided a sidewalk connection to the multi-use trail. And lastly, there are 5 additional stalls just to the south of 7-2. And really, if you look at 7-3, we know that those 5 additional stalls will be going in the future. There's not many ways you can really lay that out once you once you start looking at that available space. So we feel that that makes the most logical sense to put it in now. And lastly, for architectural changes, we made a few modifications to material types. And the word, if you're familiar with materials, which I am not, but I know that the word nishiha is a very expensive word in the on what we had initially proposed, and we would just like to substitute a few of those nishiha materials for let's see, we had composite lap siding, which has a very similar look to that nishiha composite plank that was initially proposed back in November, and then our fiber cement panel, which was a Nishiha product, is just going to an EFIS, which again, very similar look, and really has a, if you were to put these side by side with one another, they're almost identical.
That summarizes them.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Commissioners, what are your thoughts or questions? Commissioner Truill has a thought, I can just tell. He's thinking awful hard. Not yet, though? All right, Commissioner Barman and then Hannah.
Yes. I think it all makes a lot of sense. It seems appropriate to be as efficient as possible, and I think the only one that I guess I'm newer to the whole development plan, the 5 extra stalls. I'm assuming that's parking that was planned for to begin with. We're not adding more parking than what was part of the original vision for the development.
No, nope, and we're still sticking to being consistent with the GDP that was reapproved back in June, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at those, both the ordinance, the 1 to 300 requirement versus the time of day multiplier. So we're working back and forth with staff to make sure we're not under parking this lot, we're not over parking as well. At this time, there will be additional stalls out there, but they will be, once we get a user to go on 7.3 or 7.1, you'll see that balance happen. Yeah.
And I do like the connection to the trail system, so excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hannah.
Yeah, a lot of what, kind of echoing what Commissioner Barman said. There's really not a whole lot new here, and what is new is added benefit to the site with that trail connection. So you guys are just constructing it now and not later. So I don't see any major issues with it.
Thank you. Commissioner Truill.
And my only question was going to be with regard to the dumpster and landscape plan as a part of this. I mean, with paving the extra 48 parking stalls, is it your intent to do any additional landscape work now?
Yeah, and we're actually quite a ways over on our points. We adjusted our landscape plan, went through with staff on that. We are screening that dumpster enclosure, I think, on the north end. We have some arborvitae that'll get 6 to 8 feet tall at maturity, so have a nice buffer there. But yeah, we're quite a ways over on the landscaping.
Thank you. Commissioner Engelberger.
Thank you, Your Honor. Rodney, any exceptions here? I didn't really see any.
No, I think he characterized it properly, that they're remaining consistent with the GDP that was approved and the overall concept for the
Okay. And then I got another question of Iconica, the builder on these buildings?
KSW is the general contractor for lot 7-2 and the pavement.
Okay.
And then TJK has been the general contractor for the Dunkin' Donuts building.
Iconica designed them then, or what?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. I think we're ready to entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
So motion by Hannah, second by Truill. Further comments? All those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, no. This motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. There's a request by Kevin Burrow for approval of a specific implementation plan for the McFarland State Bank Lot 5, Kettle Park West Commercial Center. Rodney.
Yeah, the development representatives are here and can speak to the specifics, but I think you'll find the materials in the packet is appropriately adequate to move it to your consideration. The site plan is on the screen, and the entire packet of materials is included for your review and discussion as well. Maybe if anybody from McFarland State Bank want to give an overview of the project?
Make Mike do it. He sat in the front of the row.
Jump to that.
Welcome.
Oops. Hello, David Locke. I'm the CEO of McFarland State Bank, so thank you, Mayor, and the committee members too. The overview of the plan, I think you're generally familiar with. Banking facility on the corner of Highway 51 and Jackson Street, and it'll be a full-service facility, and frankly, more technology-driven, because I'm sure all of you are aware of that. Banking today fundamentally is here. People want to bank when they want to bank and where they want to bank and how they want to bank, and we're trying to address those things. I think doing a good job of it. This building will be the first of its type for us. It'll be heavy on the technology side, and also fundamentally on the customer service side for people that come in the building. So if I could answer in general questions, we have our architect here to go over the plans themselves. Are there any general questions I could answer for you?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, David. All right. Commissioners, thoughts or questions? Commissioner Hanna.
Yeah, thank you. First question would be, I think I see it on the elevation, but the staircase on the north, that is accessing going down to,
Sure.
northwest or northeast corner there. That looks like it's a staircase going down.
There is a lower level.
A lower level. Okay.
Correct.
I was just trying to confirm because I didn't see anything on the elevation.
Yeah.
And then I'm just curious if there might be a, let's see, item 7 for in-vehicle sales. I don't know if it was a typo or something, but in our opinion, this requirement, oh, never mind. Yeah, just for the drive lanes, so.
Yep, it's for the drive lanes.
I think everything, everything looks good.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Barman.
And just as a general request, if there is a color version of the renderings, I wasn't able to access online, and I'd like to see if there was a color.
There
There
is.
is.
Of the building itself?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the black and white just doesn't do it justice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There we go.
That helps a
Commissioner
lot.
Tru- Oh, and he's got a picture right there behind you.
Hard copy
Time.
for you to
Yep.
see,
Thank
too.
you.
Yep.
Much appreciated.
Commissioner Truill.
I think it's a attractive building. I think it's consistent with things that we've talked about before, and it's a good use of the site, and I would move approval.
A second.
There's a motion by Truill, a second by Hannah. Commissioner Bartlett.
I would just ask, maybe I'm missing it, the bike path on the east side, is there access for that to get to the parking lot there, I guess?
Yes,
we made a connection. I did see a bike rack, so, okay, thanks.
Very nice.
Shows it right here. Okay.
Further comments? Otherwise, Commissioner Engelberger.
Thank you, Your Honor. Rodney, same question.
Oh, I should have asked it for you because I knew you were going to say
Should have.
it. Are there any
Exceptions?
exceptions?
No,
Okay.
we don't believe that there are.
I guess my look at the plan view of the overall site, it just looks to me like the drive-up is really tight, getting into the drive-up and out of it. I don't know if anybody wants to comment on that, but it just seems like it looks a little tight to me.
Do you want to speak to the drive lines and the access to it and turning radiuses to and from?
Sure. What we've got shown there is a standard 24-foot width for all drive lanes, so that you have two-way traffic coming into the property and then running north-south as well. And then it's generous with regards to the turn into the drive area, such that we've got the 3 lanes available. So only if it would be completely clogged with vehicles would you have to wait out into the drive.
I guess I'm not so concerned about where the cars are shown there, but getting into that spot, Rodney, if you go vertical.
Into this one?
Go vertical up. Vertical getting into when you turn into the place.
So you come in off of here.
Yep. Keep coming.
Turn
Okay,
here.
right there.
Yep.
That looks tight to me, and it looks a little tight coming out, but maybe it's just a appearance, I don't know.
So this is 24 feet, I think, is what
Correct.
you're saying. So that's the minimum drive aisle width that's necessary for the access between these
Okay.
type of stalls.
I guess my only concern there is, it seems a little tight, and you've also got cars right there backing out to get in and out, as well as cars crossing to get into the main parking lot and into the drive-in. It just, kind of a concern, but I guess I'd like to hear what Scott has to say and others.
Sure.
If I can, and I agree, that was the only thing I guess I was questioning is whether we actually needed those 3 stalls that are right on that corner, because it seems like it's a transition point.
Right, all those stalls that are shown to the south and to the west there would be for employee parking. And there's quite a few offices that are located in the basement level of this building. So those vehicles will be arriving before customers and leaving after customers. So there won't be a conflict with regards to traffic.
There wouldn't be much transitioning in or out during the daytime, is what I'm
Correct.
hearing you say.
Yeah, all customers will use the northern ones adjacent to the building.
Sure. Commissioner Barman.
I think one of the reasons it might look a little tight is the exit lane there. My guess is because that's one way.
That's one way
That's
exiting
less
only.
than 24 there, that's probably about 18.
It's either 18 or 16.
Okay. And so because that's a one-way, and we're assuming there'll be one car exiting at a time,
Correct.
but that's, I think, the portion that probably looks the tightest to me
Yeah.
as compared to the other. I don't know if it's the same.
So this is a one-way. They can only come out of this
So
area.
what's the width there?
That's 16 to 18. To me, it looks like it's about 18 for a one-way. So, but that's where it looked tight to me, but then I realized it was all one-way traffic through there.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Just a staff question, I mean, Rodney, are those 3 spaces required that we were looking at that are right at that entryway in terms of for their count?
These 3 right here?
Yep.
I believe it is required for their count.
Yeah, we are right on the
They're
required
the required number.
capacity.
Yep.
23, I think.
And it's based on the square footage.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve. With seeing no further questions, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. There's a request by the City of Stoughton for site plan approval to construct a public works facility at 2439 County Highway A.
We've got all sorts of representatives here for this one.
We do, we're excited.
But I'll carry the torch to start. The reason this facility is before you, even before we've annexed and rezoned everything, is because we're in the process of trying to prepare the bid package so this project can get out to bid. For those of you that don't know, there is a property right here that's in private ownership. We're scheduled to close on that on the 15th, or this week. So once that occurs, then we'll have title to all of the property here. We'll proceed with the annexation of this remnant piece, as well as the total rezoning. We'll also talk about the discussion that's necessary here. We'll go through a conditional use process for this site as well, because there is an accessory building, salt storage facility that's separate, that would exceed 1,000 square feet. Additionally, there's some additional over required number of parking stalls in this area. This is employee parking, but there may be some training events where they have colleagues from other facilities that come here and train. So there's logic, I think, to support the additional parking that's here. but that will come as part of a conditional use. So you will see coming forward an annexation, a rezoning, and a conditional use. We're really recognizing this as a review of the building and site plan, recognizing those steps still have to occur, but really trying to afford us the opportunity to feel comfortable with the plan before we go to bid. We're anticipating advertising this project in December into January, somewhere in that time frame, and moving forward with this in the spring. Brad or Tim, can you give us just an overview of the design elements that kind of created the layout as we've come to see it here, or is there anything that you'd like to highlight?
Good evening, I'm Brad with Angus Young Associates. We have an existing site, about 13 and a half acres, which slopes from north to south downwards. So the floor plate of the building is quite a bit lower than the intersection up by Racetrack Road. So as you're coming into the site, you'll be coming downhill into the parking lot and approaching the building. From a safety and usage standpoint, the public and employees will be using the north entrance primarily to park their vehicles, and then most of the truck traffic will happen on the south side of the site, where city vehicles can come in and out without intermingling so much with the public vehicle traffic. Main facility is located in the middle of the site plan there, with the cold storage addition to the south. Vehicle maintenance is on the east side of the site, so we have access to overhead doors for vehicles to come in and out. There's a few parking stalls back there that this operations requested just to drop off vehicles that might be impaired, that need maintenance. So those stalls aren't are included in our overall site parking stall count. Roddy had mentioned the cold storage facility on the southeast part of the site. We have an access drive surrounding the whole building, which comes in on the southeast corner there, passes a dumpster area where we have 2 large dumpsters and 3 medium-sized dumpsters. Just to the west of that, there's a bunker area where they dump their sweepings and allow them to dry out before they load those with a front loader and dump the debris into the dumpsters to the east. And farther down that driveway, there's a little depression where we have a hydrant located for sweeper filling in the summer, and the fire department also plans on using that space for testing their hoses. We have a nice distance of pathway to the east that they can lay those hoses out. They requested about 300 feet to do that.
Okay, thank you.
I just had,
Alderperson
yeah,
Engelberger.
thank you.
Sure.
I just had one question. Is there an elevation change from the parking lot to the driveway to the road? Much of an elevation change there?
Yes.
How much is
From here to here?
Well,
Is that what you're
no,
asking?
basically from the parking lot or all the way around the building,
Yes.
Yeah,
out the driveway into the road.
yeah. The cold storage
How much
building
of
I
a
mentioned
change?
on the south is 8 feet lower than the main facility.
Okay.
This
So we're
is-
using that slope change along the west side of the building to make up some of that grade change in the site.
Right.
Okay,
So from front parking lot to back drive, it's about 8 feet of drop.
okay. So like on the side, on the right side there, Rodney, right through there,
Yeah.
where you go from that top one to the bottom one, is there quite an elevation
Yeah,
change
we're
there?
making up that same 8 feet along the
Okay.
cold storage building there,
Yep.
coming down.
Okay, so it's basically just that short area there where the elevation, that's quite a, kind of a ramp there, isn't it?
Well, it's ramping from here. It's not
Okay.
all flat here. I mean,
Okay.
there's
Okay.
some working with the grade and working it down into
Okay.
this area.
And then how about from the south side of the parking lot out the driveway to the road? Is that quite a slope there too, or no?
Yeah, it appears by what I can see, it drops down about another 8 to 10 feet.
It says 4%.
4% here.
Okay,
Starts at 2, goes to 4, so that's actually pretty subtle.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
okay.
And it's only a 6% into the building from the road. And then the rest, 2%, which is, you won't even notice.
Right.
Yeah, for the most part, I believe we tried to keep it less than 5% grade change.
I mean, that's under ADA for everything, ADA's 8.3, so.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem that significant.
This is the landscape plan we prepared, and it got to be quite confusing with all the requirements that were involved, so we went ahead and color-coded it to kind of show which planting elements meant the 5 different standards of the ordinance. So the yellow being terrace trees, and green, purple, blue, and orange.
This was quite helpful for staff. I mean,
Oh, I
really
bet.
to try to evaluate where the points for each different required element were being positioned in place. So this was very helpful to us. And I know everyone likes color, so that's why I put it up here. Let's see if, so can you speak to the building materials and talk about the elevations a little bit?
Sure. The building material we selected is a precast tilt-up concrete wall panel, which is very suitable for this type of building where you want durability, longevity, and anti-corrosiveness
Trying
to
get
it.
the
So
right page.
it's a sandwich made out of concrete with rigid insulation in between it for thermal value. So material-wise, it's concrete, but we can do a lot with how we finish that concrete to give texture and shadow to the building to get variations in the appearance. And that's this is the 3D rendering we showed of the building, which doesn't really show the colors that great, but it kind of shows a differentiation of what we're looking for as far as the appearance of the building and how we texture that concrete panel, either with a raked finish or a sandblasted finish or an exposed aggregate finish to create those shadow lines and differentiation in color. So I
this a
included
better
a
one?
couple elevations that were good examples of what that looks like once it's up in place. So because a concrete panel has a standard width and for the most part a standard height, we can add a lot of striation to the building panel forms and efficiently add some architectural line details to the building without much added cost, because once you set up that panel form, you can cast as many panels as you want to. So this is showing an exposed aggregate finish on the bottom part of the building where we have the windows, some striation lines that kind of highlight the head and sill of those windows, and then going up we transition to more of a sandblast finish, maintaining those striation lines as we go up. It doesn't read very well, but there's like a 1-inch reveal between the exposed aggregate and the sandblast finish for that 12-inch piece in between. And then once we get up to the clear story windows area, we transition to another exposed aggregate finish just to, it's all gray concrete, but the way we finish that concrete, you give it a brown texture or a whiter texture. And it ends up being a very durable finish, and it's somewhat attractive, if not very attractive, compared to a metal building.
Thank you. Alderperson Truel, did you have a question?
Yeah, 2 questions. One, are you also considering an alternate that would allow someone to do this in a tilt-up, as in cast in place?
Right now, we're just bidding it as a precast, so it's site-delivered concrete. We've done that because the competition in the precast market is there, but the competition in bidding for the site cast isn't quite there, where we feel we can get enough players involved to do that work. With a precast, we have 3 suppliers in the area that supply the precast concrete panels, and any number of GCs can bring those panels into the site as a subcontractor to them and have them erected on the site as part of the building package. The site cast is fairly limited to 1, if not 2 in the area, where I feel if we bid it that way, we might be limited to those 1 or 2.
Sure, I was just asking whether that was something that could be, that you had considered at all as an alternative, as an alternate to the precast. And I guess the second question is, right now the intent is to have even the cold storage area to be done exactly the same way in terms of construction, insulation, and the like?
For the most part, yes. We were looking at maybe a little lighter roof insulation just because we weren't planning on heating the area for the foreseeable future.
That would seem to be short-sighted from my perspective, as I would assume that at some point, if we ever need to grow, we would grow into that area.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I would certainly speak against making any kind of modifications like that. to that structure unless you can show us that the cost of modifying it in the future, if we move into that space, is reasonable.
Operationally, I think they can speak to that, but the cold storage is really intentioned for equipment that's not necessary to be heated and seasonal. But they they certainly could move into that. There was a consideration of a bid alternate for different material types for the cold storage, having a steel structure there as opposed to the
And that's where I'm
precast.
going with
Yeah,
it, is
yeah.
it's either one or the other
Right.
from a council standpoint,
Right.
for me as a council person.
Yeah.
Either we are going to build this as a hardwall building
Yeah.
and plan to have that space be something we can grow into, or we're going to make that we're going to separate it and make that as a pre-engineered building, which I believe would be cheaper today. So that's why I guess I just want to make sure we're on the same page as to what we're going to be seeing for bid specs in the coming weeks.
I was going to have Brett speak to that, because I know you talked about both, actually, right? And reviewing the options between the two.
Yeah, we did talk about the different options, basically to give the council something to look at, two different types of construction. So Bradley did put together both options in the bid package. And so we are going to bid out both ways. And even the metal frame building will have insulation in it as well. And we did have every intention to insulate the cold storage building for future expansion if needed in 20, 30 years, whatever that may be. So we'll talk, as we go forward too, about the insulation. I think it's something that we had talked about, and the intent was that we would move into that building and heat it if we needed to.
Thank you. Alderperson Bartlett.
I guess operationally, are you looking, when most of the city vehicles exit the east side drive, I guess I take that racetrack road a lot to go to the Brush Yardway site out there. And that intersection there can get a little dicey sometimes with traffic on County Road A, going back and forth with the speed and the curves there. Have you kind of looked at that and planned for that? I guess is there something we can do, either slow down the speed traffic or just not increase accidents at the intersection there with the three roads coming together?
Yep, as far as the grading goes, that grade is shaved down so that there's plenty of sight distance to the east, and then also there's plenty of sight distance to the west and to the north on down Racetrack Road. So to be honest, that intersection, which is kind of an offset intersection, does have quite a bit of visibility that's going to be improved as we construct the building.
Okay, thanks.
Additional thoughts or questions? Alderperson Engelberger.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion by Engelberger, second by Truul. Further comments, questions? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. This motion carries. Thank you. We have a request by Ashley Everson for an extraterritorial land division, a CSM approval to combine two parcels at 1937 Quam Drive, Town of Dunn.
Fairly self-explanatory. You've seen this before, but it doesn't meet our minimum lot size requirement in those areas. But it is allowed upon approval from the council in such a manner as outlined in the resolution that's before you tonight. We have done this in similar situations. The site plan or the location of this facility is an area that is served with what we understand to be public sanitary sewer. That's on the sewer district. Caladay Point, or Quam Point, I'm sorry. Just to give yourself some perspective, Highway 51 runs north-south along the west side here, and the site is located on Quam Point Drive.
Thank you. Alderperson Bartlett.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it, I guess. Rodney, could you just refresh my memory? It seems like we've seen some of these, and they often go to the town first, and we get like a recommendation from them.
Yeah.
Is there any standard procedure, or does it go to them after us then? Do they have to approve it as well?
They still have to approve it. There's no question. Our approval is important to them because it's necessary, but it doesn't just unilaterally get approved if we approve it. It requires the town/county approval action.
Okay, thanks.
And sometimes the town will look for a not, what do I want to say it,
It's more scheduling
not
thing.
opposed by the city kind of thing.
Yeah, one of our statements in our, be it resolved, hereby approved is presented contingent on the town of Dunn and Dunkirk and county approval, so.
Okay, thanks.
Move approval.
There's a motion by Alderperson Truul. Is there second by Alderperson Engelberger? Further comments or questions? All those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. So future agenda items.
Nothing specific, other than we anticipate seeing the SIP for the 314 West Main, Mr. Todd Nelson. We'd anticipate seeing that in the short future. I think he wants to move quickly on that. Other than that, I'm not aware of anything particular.
Okay. All right, very well. One more motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Hannah, second by Truul. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you.
Tomorrow, everybody else.